Let me ask you a question. Are you a 10% version of yourself? Yes or no? What I'd say is that you're probably less than that. That's my best guess. And the reason why is because of the influences that you've been exposed to. So let me put it to you this way. Anytime that you watch a nature documentary, what do you see? You see a bunch of animals that are eating each other. Let's say you watch an ocean documentary like Blue Planet. What do you see? You see the one fish eating the other fish, eating the other fish, eating the other fish, eating the other fish. In life, what's going to happen is you're going to be exposed to external influences, and most of the influences that you're going to be exposed to want to leech off of you. If you have any doubt about that, simply watch Planet Earth. Go watch Blue Planet. Do you think your life is any different? That being the case, let me ask you a question. Is there anybody around you who is leeching energy from you? Are there any foods that you're consuming that are leeching energy from you? Are there habits that you're engaged in that are leeching energy from you? What is it about your day-to-day life that is leeching energy? So right now, if I say to you, can you concentrate? Can you get your mind present for even 10 seconds? Can you come up with any brilliant business ideas? Can you lock in and focus on the things that would change your life, such as building a world-class skill? Can you even get the nerve to walk up and talk to somebody who intimidates you and not act like a complete weirdo? What's going on with you? Why are you this less than 10% version of yourself? What's going on? What I'm going to explain in this coming video, which is a preview of the themes from our new 4-day self-help event, is that you are engaging with people in a way that is sucking energy from you. You have not really audited your life, and you don't have clear boundaries. This is something that I know all too well. Even during my awakening, what I experienced was very much a state of codependence, a state that, frankly, is pretty embarrassing. And I allowed myself to get entangled into many different situations to where I wasn't being at my best at establishing a boundary. As a result of that, I probably blew decades of my career trying to make people happy, trying to get in relationships that I couldn't make work, and I didn't understand what was going on. I wasn't awake to that. What we have coming up is a 4-day event. And in this event, what we're going to be doing is auditing your life in great detail and getting you to flesh out what your life looks like in great detail, because we've got to wake you up to this. And as we wake you up to this, what you're going to find is that you have incredible energy, incredible focus, and the ability to do things that you didn't know were possible. But to get you to that point, we've got to understand what it means to have a boundary. What we're doing here is we're going over the theory. At the event, I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm not going to be, I'll talk a lot, but I'm not going to be doing seminar. I'm going to be doing exercises. It's going to be very interactive, exercise heavy. So you guys are going to be doing group work and a lot of exercises. So because I can teach you, for example, I can teach you how to talk and talk forever the way I do, and I can tell you the theory behind it, but I'd rather get you doing an exercise doing it. In this video, I'm going to cover things that are very humiliating, embarrassing, raw, painful aspects of things that it's taken me years to wake up to. And in spite of me doing so many things right and really locking in and honestly giving everything I have to doing the right thing, because I didn't understand these few areas, my life was a mess. Because of that, it's such a pleasure for me to be including that in our new live event, our 4-day self-help event, and to help you with that. Because what I've been through on the positive side means that I understand what you're going through, and I can help take you through a process to where you do establish boundaries, and what you have instead of your current situation is you're in relationships where you're getting energy from it. You're getting engaged with aspects of the world that are giving you energy. You're interfacing in a way where you're coming out as a net positive. So as you watch this video, just consider this as a theme of the upcoming event. Now remember, with these videos, these previews, these are just previews of the themes. These were just riffs that I gave that will go so deep on the themes. But when you come to the 4-day self-help event, we're actually going to be doing exercises and continual auditing. This is not going to be the Owen show where I talk like in this video. This is going to be the you show. So lay back and enjoy this preview of the themes from the 4-day self-help event. And what you're going to learn is what it means to establish relationships that are feeding you energy. And then when I meet you in person at the event, we're going to go deep and get you on the right track. Let's do it. I remember I had this one student, and he was like this 55-year-old guy from South America, and he was wearing this yellow cardigan. This was when I was in my early 20s, and I had no personal boundaries. So this guy, he took my boot camp, and see now, if I had a student terrorize me, emotionally terrorize me and be demanding an asshole, I would just tell him, just grab a refund and bounce. We're good, bro. Just grab a refund, we're good. I don't need to be here, you don't need to be here, do your thing. But when I was in my early 20s, it was like, I couldn't handle them, like, you know, that there's always gonna be that one guy out of 500 who just is like toxic. And so what happened was on the final day, I was at this club called The World, which is basically where Buffalo Wild Wings is now on Hollywood. And I'm like, how can I get this guy laid? So I'm like, maybe I'll start a fucking mosh pit and I'll make it look like he's the leader of it. So literally, I'm like, Ronald, I'm like, we're gonna do a mosh pit. And like, and literally, I start getting him fucking jumping up and down, and the whole back end of the club is like moshing and going crazy. And finally, I'm like, yeah, Ronald, yeah, like all this shit. And like finally, I did that, and then all these girls jumped on him for like 2 minutes. Now, after they realized he's a fucking creeper, they ran off. But for that little bit of time, he was the king. After I did that, now I do that shit anytime I want. But at that time, I was like in 2004, when I innovated that, I was like, I literally just walked on water for this fucking guy. And still, you know what he said? He goes, I didn't get laid. And he's like complaining. And I finally push him up against the wall. And I'm like, listen, you're a fucking piece of shit. Fuck you. You're fucking scum. I fucking got you in a mosh pit. I'm like, I have gone to the end of the earth for you. What in the fuck is wrong with you? And finally, he's like, oh, yeah. Tell me I'm a bad boy. Tell me I'm a naughty boy. I'm a bad boy. I'm a naughty boy. Yeah, I'm scum. No one will tell me that. Finally, someone told me the truth. And that's when I realized at that point, I was like, oh. I'm like, literally, some people are just so negative that you can't even resonate with them. If you show them anything positive, they're going to engage in this low vibration energy circuit with you. And it's a lot like a narcissist and a codependent. So when you study codependence, you can literally see that a narcissist and a codependent, there's a book called Human Magnet Syndrome by Ross Rosenberg. And what will happen is a narcissist, like this demanding narcissist, will find a codependent and get in this kind of loop with them where the codependent is running through loops in order to please the narcissist. Well, here's the lesson that I learned from Eben Pagan. Do you guys know who Eben Pagan is? Yeah. Okay, do you guys know who? Yeah, give him props, right? He's amazing. Okay, well, he used to run a program called Double Your Dating. It was one of the founding programs of this community. And he later, like, David D'Angelo was a pen name for Eben Pagan. So Eben, he used to run Double Your Dating programs. Now Eben, he's a very giving guy. He's helped millions of people. He's changed the world. But he also has this thing that I didn't have, and that's called boundaries. And so literally, Eben is on this like incredible flow at his seminar that he did called Man Transformation in like 2008. And there's about 330 people there, big crowd. And I remember right in the middle of this very powerful point he's making, I hear this like guy in the middle of the crowd going, David, right? And it's so awkward, right? It's so weird and awkward and out of place. He's like, David. And so David D, aka Eben Pagan, he's like, what in the heck is this? And he's like, what, man? And he's like, I have a question. You know, and I'm sitting off to the side, right? I'm there as a colleague, as another teacher in dating. And I see this fucking yellow cardigan put his hand up, okay? And I'm like, this guy. I haven't thought about this guy in years, right? It's this fucking guy, right? And he's like, David, and at that time I still had my codependence to a great extent. I probably still have like 10% of my codependence, but I've changed a lot. So, you know, maybe a little more, but I'll tell myself that. So, but you know, I've worked hard on it. I studied Ross Rosenberg and like narcissist books and codependent books to get past my codependence. So basically what happened was, Eben, aka David D, we'll call him Eben, he's like, all right, look, man, come to the front, ask the question, but if this is not something that will like, you know, benefit the audience or whatever, you're gonna sit the fuck down. And of course, that doesn't intimidate Ronald whatsoever. So Ronald fucking like runs up. I've never said the name of a student I'm complaining about before, so I've never made that mistake, but I taught this guy like 15 years ago, so, I mean, and he was 55 at the time, so I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll be all right. Ronald will be fine. You've never heard me shit on a past student before. You're not supposed to, you know, talk about on people like that. So I fucked up. Anyway, fucking Ronald. Okay, so never gotten over it. Years later, bitching about it. So nightmares in my mind, like. So anyway, so Ronald comes up, right? And he's like, David, David. I wish I could remember the exact question, but it was something completely unrelated to what Eben, was talking, Eben, aka David D, was talking about. And he's like, what do I do with this? And Eben just looks at him with disgust. And he's just like, I was curious, because as he walked up from like kind of the back of the room, right? So you see him kind of walking up. It's like, I'm in suspense. Like, I wonder how Eben's gonna handle this guy compared to me, right? There's me, spending 3 fucking days sucking this guy's cock, just stroking his cock, like putting it in my butt, like demand, now you're gonna do this, now you're gonna show me this, now you're gonna get this, now you're gonna make them do this, and I'm just like doing this for like 3 fucking days, like, okay, yeah, please, I can't get a bad review, oh my God, like all this shit, right? So finally, like, getting this guy to mosh, finally getting into some weird kind of S&M thing with him at the end that left me feeling violated. So, that was and he refunded at the end too, by the way. So anyway, it was literally the only thing I got out of that was learning the mosh pit and learning about codependence and S&M. So basically what happened was he goes to the front. I'm like, I wonder how Eben's gonna handle this, right? Like, what's Eben gonna do here? So Eben looks at him and he just looks at him completely confused. He goes, Ronald, sit the fuck down, right? And he's like, huh? Because he's probably used to me, right? Ronald's used to running shit, like with little dancing monkey Owen's gonna like handle all his shit one-on-one. And he's just like, huh? And he just like goes and sits back down. Eben just looks at him and he's like, it's crazy sometimes, man, right? Like some people, it's like, and that you see him get like introspective. He's like, some people, it's like they're drowning. And it's like, they're just drowning so much, just pulling at people's feet as they drown to suck them down. It's like, sometimes it's like they're just yelling in desperation so loud that no one can hear them scream. And basically what he's saying is like, it's almost like he's so desperate, so toxic, so dark, that people just get to the point they just can't even deal with it. They're just like, whoa, like, I don't even know what that is. Almost like, not to be like negative or mean, but like almost like if you saw a homeless person on the street and it's like, just their situation is so messed up that like, maybe if somebody who is partially having problems came to you and was like, hey, can you help me? You might try to help them, but like at a certain point, they're just so much of a value suck that you don't even know what to do. You're just like, I gotta go. You're just like out there. And now it's how he felt with this guy. But it was funny to me at that moment. I was like, how come Eben knows to just shut this down, but I feel this need to double down and double down and double down and double down and double down. And I do apologize again for calling out a student from 20 years ago, because again, I've never crapped on a student in my life, and I hope I never do. I think I truly never will again, and I'll commit to that now. But it was just a sort of a funny standpoint because, or at least not by name. So the point being is like, what I learned from that is the first thing was I was like, well, what's the difference between me and Eben? Like, why didn't I know? Why did Eben immediately just have this boundary? He immediately recognized this is a useless, like he could immediately see this is going nowhere. And how come I have this need to fix people? Why do I have this need to make this right? Why can't I give up on this person? And yet Eben not only immediately gave up on him, but was just like basically just like clowning him a little bit. And does that mean that I'm a more compassionate person than Eben? Or does it mean that he's a more compassionate person than me? Now, what would be the argument that I'm more compassionate? What's the argument that I'm more compassionate? I didn't give up on him. I tried. I did everything I could. But what would be the argument that Eben is more compassionate? What do you think?
He gave him what he needed, not what he wanted.
He gave him what he needed, not what he wanted. But there's another thing too. He saved his time to help others. Could you guys give me a hand for saying that? Okay. That's the right answer. He saved his time to help others. If I was to say the biggest regret of my life is that I don't give up on people. It's a problem that I have. And the reason that I don't give up on people is because I double down. I can't accept, because I'll see somebody screwing up and I'll know what the consequences are going to be, and I can't accept it. I'm like, I can't just let that person go and have their own lessons. But what winds up happening is I double down, double down, double down. So repeat after me. Don't double down on someone else. Say that. Don't double down on someone else. Instead, double down on yourself. Instead, double down on yourself. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. It's like, take that guy Ron, right? Again, I've never named a student before, but just take that guy Ron from almost 2 decades ago. What I kept doing was I kept doubling down. So for me to just give him the refund, rather than just saying, hey man, take your refund, you're toxic, I kept doubling down and doubling down, doubling down. Well, by the second day, I don't want to do a refund and have him leave, because then why did I go through that nightmare the first day? I don't want to do that. I don't want to have gone through that nightmare the first day if I'm not going to make this pan out on the second day. Well, now that I've doubled down on the second day, what happens on the third day? Well, I definitely don't want to lose it. So now I'm digging myself into a pit. But what's clear is I have no boundaries, and the dynamic is skewed. It's called the buyer-seller dynamic. Repeat that word after me. The buyer-seller dynamic. So what's happened is, in Ronald's view of the world, he views it like the $600 that he gave me for a boot camp back then. Yeah, wouldn't you like to do a $600 boot camp? Okay, but I'm like 24 at the time, had been teaching 2 years. The $600 that he gave me for a boot camp when I was a 2-year teacher, to him, that was the value, and I had to meet his expectations. Now, at the point that I'm at, I'm in a totally different situation, because let me ask you this. Let's say right now, if I'm running an 8-figure-a-year sales business, and I do a boot camp that does even $35,000 in sales that weekend, do you think I make money or lose money when I'm teaching that boot camp? I actually, if you're counting it, I make money as far as $35,000 in a boot camp, but as far as what's called opportunity cost, say that word with me, opportunity cost, I've changed my life situation by working and doubling down on myself. Like, you know, oftentimes I double down on the other person, it's bad, but sometimes I do double down on myself, and I've done that to an extent. And by doubling down on myself in the places that I have, I've hit a point where I built a business where I'm actually teaching boot camp as a hobby. It's literally a hobby. Now, here's where that gets interesting. If I now have a student on a boot camp and I'm busting my ass. Now, to be fair, if I have the odd bad program, I own it. I go, you know, like one program out of 100, I'm like, you know what, man, I probably could have done a little better. You know, we're all good. Let's just, you know, I'm going to listen to what you have to say, or I'll even refund you. And if that's the case, that's what a refund policy is for. That's probably me, like, you know, if I taught 1,000 hours of boot camp, that's like one time a year or something like that. And this is what a refund policy is for. I have no problem doing it. But for the most part, if I get a student who's being toxic, and that student is being an asshole and trying to engage with me on that level of this narcissist to codependent relationship, here's what happens. I just look at them and I go, look, man, I've done this and this. I'm here to teach you, to help you. If you don't want to continue, that's okay. And what do you think is the reaction 9 times out of 10? I'm so sorry. This is actually an awesome program. I got in a bad mood. It's my bad. This is amazing. I want to keep going. I apologize. And I'm like, of course, brother. You know, maybe they're going through a negative moment. Maybe they're just a little bit stressed. I'm not there to judge it. I'm not judging them at all. I understand, you know, when you're doing real transformation work, you might freak out or panic. So I just feel like maybe they're panicking a bit. But in the past, I would have owned that. I would have gone, no, no, please, no, no, please, because I hadn't doubled down on myself and set up my life to a point, like, I've got to be at a point where whatever I'm doing or teaching, I could be making more money or making equal money doing something else. Like if I'm here in this room, the way that I'm going to carry myself in this room and the way that I'm going to communicate with you, if I know that I could be making more money or doing something more productive or fun if I wasn't here, you're going to feel that energy off of me in an entirely different way. You're going to view it like I'm sitting here doing you a favor, and you're going to be on good behavior. But I'll tell you, if this was me 20 years ago when I'm first teaching, I would be nervous before the program. See, a lot of you guys in this room, I don't mean to be weird here, but I'm just trying to get you thinking. How many of you guys in this room, you're actually nervous when you come up to me? Who feel, okay. But see, when I was first teaching, because I really needed it to work, because I dropped out of school and stuff to make it work, then I went back and finished, but I need to work, I'd be nervous in front of you. If you were to see a brand new teacher, they're nervous in front of you usually. And because of that, you're not going to value their time as much. But here's where it gets really interesting, and I want to be, you know, give you some more funny examples. I remember this one time I went out, and me and Julian, we were out at the club, and we met this one girl, and I just remember how utterly uncivilized she was acting. It was really, really nasty stuff. I was like, how do you treat somebody like this? This is just a really nasty way to act. Anyway, I was with Ty Lopez, who runs a modeling agency, maybe a couple weeks later or something. And I remember me and Ty were sitting at this movie theater, the ArcLight in LA. We're sitting at a table outside. And a lot of time, girls that work in Ty's agency will come meet up with Ty. And I remember this girl comes and sits down, and as I see her walking up, I'm like, oh, there's that girl that was like acting so nasty and crazy the other night. Just like, you know, nothing like super bad, but we were just talking, and she was like just acting like really impolite. And she sits down, and she's like, hi, Ty. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. How are you doing? And I'm like, okay. Like, that is not the same fucking person. Like, this could not be the same person. How can this be the same human being that I'm just seeing? Here's what I came to realize. The behavior that you're going to get from somebody is going to have a range. I want you to think of yourself and your range of behavior. Are there people who you act very impolite and uncivilized towards? Be honest. Is there anybody in your life who you act in a very impolite way to, or even maybe a bit disrespectful? Be honest. And if not full-on disrespectful, then less than really awesome. Then are there other people who you'll act incredible to? You know, you're treating them like totally, like you're thinking of what you're going to say before you get there. You're trying not to interrupt their time too much. You're trying to be concise in what you're saying. And you really value their opinion of you. And so what you have is a situation where in your life, and here's the key to it, okay? This is really key what I'm going to tell you. This is 20 years of mistakes that I'm going to give you the answer to. If I could have seen this 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to hear it. But the point is, if I could have heard it 20 years ago, it would have been I would have had a very different life. My life would look really different. Very different. My life would be so different right now. In fact, if you were to look at me and you were to look at where I'm at in life, for the good and the bad, most of the bad is because of this one misunderstanding. I could attribute this one failure that I've made over the years, and I'm trying my best to break out of it. My problem was I couldn't double down on myself. I kept putting good money after bad. I couldn't give up on people, and I tolerated bad behavior without a boundary. To the point, and I'm going to be real with you here, to the point that things that I have tolerated have been so outrageous that if I were to tell you about it, you would look at me like the biggest idiot. You would have trouble even respecting me. I have tolerated behavior, whether it's in my dating life or whether it's in my work life. I mean, I have had it where people have, like, I've seen it where, like, you know, somebody might steal hundreds of thousands, you know, towards $1 million out of my business. And not only am I like, look, I forgive you, I care about you, I'll never speak bad, and they're just shitting on me. And I just do nothing about it. I have had it where girls will cheat on me, and I forgive them, and I say it was probably my fault. And I let that happen. I've had it where girls, I'm taking them out to a beautiful dinner that might cost $500 or $700, and they'll just treat me like crap, and I just completely, utterly deal with it. And when people first meet me, they don't view me that way. They see me as the persona. But slowly but surely, as they get to know me, and they go over the boundary a little bit, and go over the boundary a little bit, and go over the boundary a little bit, and I never draw the line, what happens is, they say this after me, familiarity breeds contempt. Now what's funny is eventually I have a boundary. I just give up a little bit later than most people. Eventually I have a boundary, and eventually I'll cut them out of my lives. I don't think there's been more than 1 or 2 people ever that I have cut out that hasn't come back years later and been like, this was the biggest mistake of my life. What was I thinking? How could I have done that? What a waste that I did this. I've never had a single ex-girlfriend, and I'm not saying this with pride, but I've never had a single ex-girlfriend that hasn't come back crying on hands and knees, begging to come back, because I do offer a ton of value. But you want to know why they do that? Because I tend to fall into that familiarity breeds contempt thing too easily. I don't have boundaries. They eventually act worse and worse and worse. And ironically, by me not having a boundary, who am I messing over even worse than myself? Them. They're the ones that wind up with inferior guys. They're the ones that wind up in a less good situation. And because I never had a boundary, they just weren't able to appreciate it. And so what happened was with Eben, when Ronald came up, and he just said, sit down, Eben understood a simple truth. He could read the play a mile away. He was more aware than me in that area. He's really good with this, actually. It's a strength of his. Eben has great boundaries. And so Eben got to a point where what he said was basically, sit down. Because he knew this isn't going to get any better. This isn't going to get any better. It's going to stay like this. I had that same awareness recently with the story that I told you guys about. I'll kind of broad stroke this. You remember I was telling you that story that there was like this really cool girl, and kind of like a random fun thing we used to do is we jump in the bathtub at the end of the day, put on like some sea salt lamps or candles. I know you guys are going to puke at all this romance stuff, but I liked it. I like a little romance, you know, right? So, you know, I put on some candles. I put on like a Cafe Del Mar Ibiza soundtrack. You guys ever heard like Cafe Del Mar soundtracks? No? Okay, anyway. So they're pretty cool. I've been to Cafe Del Mar in 2003. It's kind of like chill out music. A lot of the best chill out music, it's kind of like Cafe Del Mar branded, okay? So, you know, I'm sitting there, like it's, like they'll pick the best artists and put in a compilation. So I'm sitting there, I'm listening to my little Cafe Del Mar music. We'd put coconut oil in the bath. We'd kind of slither around on each other, and we clown around. We just joke around. And that's what I really love about dating, right? Like having like those beautiful moments where you're kind of, like you're on each other's team, you know what I mean? You're on that moment when you're on each other's team, and you're clowning around. Nothing's heavy. You're not trying to kind of subtly manipulate each other. You know, in relationships, we'll tend to do that. We all do it, right? It's like this like subtle manipulation, like this kind of like poison drip, low-level power struggle of who gets to say what or made each other jealous or disappointed the other. You know that part before all that where you just have fun with each other? And I remember like I'd had a couple bad breakups, and I finally hit a point where I'm like, I got to draw boundaries, right? That was when I hit that point where I learned that if I just go out and like, you know, hook up with other people and stuff, that the girl will actually come back, funny enough, like in a rotation, and will actually act better. I was beginning to see that. So this girl here, we'd had a lot of fun, and we were about maybe a couple months in the relationship. That's usually when you start getting your first weird stuff. And I remember I was sitting in the bathtub with her like we always used to do, and she was kind of complaining, and she was in a bad mood, and kind of just whining about this or that. And this had happened maybe a couple tubby times in a row. And I realized at that moment, like I told you the other day, I asked myself, can this ever be great? Like, are we ever going to go back to the point where we just joke around and she's putting her best face forward? Like, she's going to be her best self. And then I thought to myself, what is the actual net positive of this relationship? I'm like, the sex is really good. She's really beautiful. Really beautiful. You know, I want to be clear, just because I teach dating, that doesn't mean that when I break up with a stunning woman, I'm not still like, like, and I do it regularly. I did it twice this week with two girls. I just don't want to deal with it right now. So, you know, both of them beautiful. And like literally, you know, some of you guys probably know one of them. And so literally I let go one of them. And it was actually, the one that I let go this week, it was like, the sex just wasn't that passionate anymore. I want to be friends with her, but the sex just isn't passionate. It's very like paint by the numbers kind of sex, you know? And I've already got a bunch of kids, so I don't necessarily need to keep around some kind of comfortable relationship at this point in my life. And I was just like, you know, I don't think sex will ever be like this. I want to be your friend, maybe do some projects together, but I don't want to do this. And I just let it go. And that, believe me, when I do that, like, even at this point now, where I'm at now, there's still a part of me that's almost like floating above my body, like, are you really doing this, dude? What if you never get another one like this? I still feel that. I'm sure you all do. You all feel it. I get it. You'll probably never stop feeling that. I know you had a breakup recently. Did you feel that way in some ways when you cut it off?
No.
Really? Wow, your girl was even doing threesomes with you and stuff too.
It goes back and forth. It's up and down.
Okay, you're pretty cocky. Anyway, so, well, that's good for you, man. Well, how long have you been studying my stuff for?
3 years.
Okay, so maybe I'll take credit for that. I'm just kidding. Yes. No, but like that's good that you're that confident. But I think in my case, like, yeah, even to this day, when I let go like a really good one, there is that little voice in the back of my head where I'm like, can I get another one like this? Like, I mean, I know in your case you had kind of what's called a unicorn, if I understand that correctly. That's what you told me. Yeah. Unicorn? Do you guys know what a unicorn is? It's a girl who would do threesomes with you. Your girl watched you put your cock and participated. That is something to think about, because for you, she would do that. But for the next guy or the next guy, she may not. And yet ironically, and here's the crazy irony of this, her heart will ache for you in 10 years more than the next, sort of fuck you up. Okay, her heart will ache more for you, I predict, just guessing here. I'm totally right though. So, okay, her heart will ache more for you in 10 years than the next guy who she wouldn't be a unicorn for. Ironically, because with you, she doubled down. Unfortunately, this is bad to say, but like this would actually, this is more me taking her side now. If she were my client, but you are, so I'll just tell you what you want to hear. But if she was my client and I was advocating for her side of it, I'd be telling her, look at this look at this kiddo, you know, you even let him hook up with other girls in front of him and he still left you. No offense, you know what I mean, right? But I'd be like, it didn't even work. Her doubling down on you didn't even work. I mean, you'd tell, but think about it. You would tell most women, you would say to most women, if you'd even let him hook up with other women with you, you'd think he'd stay, right? But even that wasn't good enough. You're the version of like my girl who I would like fly around and like be monogamous with, and then she'd still dump me. Okay. Or not dump me, but act so bad I'd have to dump her. So I kind of view it like she's dumping me. You're the reverse. If in her next relationship she doesn't even do that, because she doesn't feel the need to be that much putting her best foot forward, she won't be doubling down. And then ironically, because she's not doubling down, she'll probably treat that guy worse. Like she'll probably be more problematic and prone to emotional outbursts. She'll probably, give me a second, bro. She'll probably be more prone to emotional outbursts. She'll probably be more prone to bad behavior, disrespectful behavior, and not even give as much to that guy as to you. And then ironically, when that ends, in 10 years, she'll remember you more than she remembers that next guy that actually treated her better.
Let's consider this a live scientific experiment.
Okay, let's do that. We'll see how it goes. But I predict that, and I'll tell you why. We always remember the ones that we gave everything we had and they just couldn't see it. And we crave that approval. We crave it, right? Look, I'm still bitching about Ronald 20 years later. I'm like, Ronald. You know? Fucking Ronald. I gave him I did a mosh pit for a man in a cardigan. You know? That's like you with like she's like, I let him fuck another woman in front of me, right? I'm like, he did a mosh in a cardigan. He did a weird S&M thing with me where I became a dom with another man who was 25 years older than me at the time, you know, right? Like, you know, I always remember that one. You think Eben Pagan remembers Ronald? No. Eben could be watching this right now. He's like, who's this motherfucker? You know, right? He'd be rewinding it like, what happened? He's like, this sounds hilarious. What did I do? Me, you know. And here's what's funny. I put down 3 full days and still got a refund. I still got refunded. See, that's the best part. Is like, even when you keep doubling down, it doesn't work. If I told you, I'm like, Dan, we did the mosh pit and then he didn't do the refund. You know, then you'd be like, well, maybe then there'd be an argument for doubling down. But it's never like that. What happens when you double down is the power dynamic shifts and shifts and shifts until there's no real estate left, and then you're just begging for shit. And here's where it gets really crazy too, okay? This is where it gets really nuts. I've had it where, like, there's so many times where, like, you know, say it's my own team. I want to keep the guys together so bad. And I'll just be getting pushed on and pushed on and pushed on and pushed on and giving up more and more and more and more. And I'll literally find myself sitting there, like, preparing a presentation for that person that I work with to, like, keep us working together and, like, showing them stuff. And, like, it's gotten so preposterous. And, like, partway through, I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I offer so much value. But here's where it gets skewed, and this is the key to the whole thing. The doubling down is a Chinese finger trap. The more that you double down on others and not on yourself, what then proceeds to happen, and this, again, this is the key to it all, is that you don't have the time and energy, that ROI, you're not getting a return on opportunity cost. You guys know what the idea of opportunity cost? Yes. When you're sitting there begging that person to like you, and putting in all your emotional energy, time capital, mental capital, feelings capital, love capital, energy all that stuff that you're putting it in, you don't have time to become who you could become. See, here's what happened when I broke up with that one girl that was being really nasty. So with that girl, again, I placated. I remember at the end, and I'm not proud of this, okay? I'm not proud of this. I'm just trying to save you guys time and energy. Not proud of this, what I'm gonna tell you. This is pretty bad stuff. Try to not lose respect for me. I think at the end, I bought her about $20,000 in clothes. And I did that because earlier in the relationship, I had her in a rotation, and she stood by me. Later, I was working a lot, didn't have a lot of quality time to spend with her, and she stood by me. But then progressively later, she became worse. And as she became worse, I saw her acting worse, and I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, man, she was a really good girl for a long time. I've never even bought her anything. I want to do something special. So I started buying her like a lot of just really beautiful stuff and just going over above and beyond. And about 2 months later, she dumped me. And she dumped me after I took her on a beautiful boat ride in Miami. I asked her to hold a kombucha. She said, what do you think I am, one of your fucking slaves or fanboys? I'm not holding your kombucha. Dumped me. Later when I called her on the phone and said, what's going on? She's like, you never even buy me anything. I'm like, I just brought you to Miami for several weeks, bought you 20 grand in clothes. I'm saying this to you because many of you, whether on your own or by studying like for all you guys, for example, that are gonna come take the self-help course, I'm gonna show you guys how to make as much money as I can physically show you. A lot of you guys are gonna make a lot of paper. And when you do that, don't fall in this trap. Don't do it. And I even saw it where a buddy of mine, by the way, at that same time, who was also really, really wealthy, by the way, his business makes 10x what mine does. Older guy, but still very attractive dude to a woman for sure. He got to the point where he had bought his wife, and again, this is a guy that could get girls no problem and could easily have his choice. I mean, to be fair, if you want to be really nasty and blunt, again, like I just try to like be real. I don't mean to like offend anybody. Like by the time of how much money he's spending on her, he could have, like, if that was like the route he wants to go, that girl was like 36, 37, although very attractive. He could have been buying a different sugar baby every day, 3 times a day for the amount of money he was spending on her. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be like nasty. Like I don't do that. I've never ever paid for sex with somebody I just met. I've only ever spent money on somebody after we've been intimate, and usually quite a while after. But the point is like, you know, if I've been dating a girl for, you know, a year, I'm not like, you get no food. Like, you know, I'm not like a jerk about it. But the point is like I'm not a jerk about it. But like, he literally had bought her this beautiful car. He'd got her tons of plastic surgery. I mean, probably, I would have guessed like 50 or 100 grand in plastic surgery. He was flying her around on private jets, taking her to private islands. And I remember even this guy's a very attractive guy, but by the end of it, he was like when they were arguing a lot, she was getting more disrespectful and more disrespectful. And I remember he said to me, he was like, well, first of all, it scared him to break up. Why? I would have to assume, because look, imagine if you spent 100 grand on plastic surgery for a girl. She was already pretty attractive, but he just took it to this whole other level. Do you want to give up that 100 grand of plastic surgery? Then he was even saying things like, well, if we break up, you know, like, I'll for sure like let her keep the Ferrari because, I mean, that's only fair. Like look how skewed this is. But to him, this was real. To him, this was real. There was a girl who I used to do threesomes with who later broke up with me, actually. And this was when I was a lot younger. And I never paid a dime for her. You know, when we first met, we had an awesome, fun one-night stand. We were seeing each other for a while. I was not exclusive with her. Didn't pay a dime on her. Probably didn't spend a dime on her for a very long time. She had her own job. But we wound up dating for a couple years. And later, even in our relationship, I wound up spending some money on her. And I remember when I broke up with her, or she broke up with me, actually. I was saying, these are a lot of just embarrassing experiences. I mean, I'm just sharing this so you can learn from it, right? Are you guys learning from my misdeeds here? Okay, thanks. A little encouragement, because this is not fun stuff. So basically, yeah, this is really stupid stuff. I'm not proud of it. So what happened was when she broke up with me, I remember I kept saying to my buddy, I'm like, you know, at this point, I'm like traveling her everywhere. I got her a boob job. You know, I got her all these nice clothes. And I kept looping on how much I was doing for her. And you know what my buddy said to me? He goes, Owen, it's not that she's losing the travel and the money and stuff. She's losing you. And I was like, no, I mean, yeah, you know, she's losing me too. But, you know, like I travel her all around, and like we just went to like Date with Destiny together, and that cost like $7,000. Like she's not gonna get to go to educational trainings anymore, and like really have like a really good lifestyle. She's gonna lose all that. She's gonna have a crappy life after me. And then he goes, Owen, she's losing you. And I was like, again, that same loop. Well, when my buddy was going through that with his girl, who he spent like 100 grand on surgery and bought her a Ferrari and did all this, he kept going on and on about how she wouldn't have as good of a life without him. I was like, bro, she's losing you. You're a brilliant entrepreneur who's passionate, who's an alpha male, who can get tons of other more attractive women. She's losing you, bro. That's the problem when have you guys ever heard me ranting and raving, don't use money? It's not the money thing. Now, does that make a little bit more sense now? The money it introduces a toxic element into the relationship. Now, this is not devolving into one of these raw girls like jerks thing. I'm not suggesting that in any way. this is not a conversation about being a nice guy versus a jerk at all. What do you guys think this is a conversation about? The word starts with an I. Investment. Say that word. Investment. So the thing is, the more that you invest and double down on them, you're not doubling down on yourself. So let's then finish that other loop that I figured out. Once I was no longer monopolizing all of my time and energy on that one girl and buying her $20,000 in jackets and whatnot, again, I was like totally the opposite of that for the first half of the couple-year relationship. But then later I felt bad because she was kind of a ride or die type girl, and then I switched my vibe up. Well, what happened was I started doing parties. Now, with that 5-6 hours a day that I was spending with her, what did that free me to do in terms of time and energy? It freed me to start going out with a higher regularity. Instead of me spending my time on a relationship that was in a downward spiral, what did I do? Well, I spent my time working on my body, working on my health, working on my business. A big one was just hanging out with friends again. Just hanging out with my friends again who I hadn't been in touch with. Doing things that made me feel happy. Hiking. It really just became all about me. But then the big one, if I'm just being real, is the social media and the parties. Like just going out, working on my social skills, social media and parties. Like if you took away all of them and you just had that, you'd still be like killing it. But the more holistic you can do it, the better in my opinion too. So it's just be very careful because again, guys will all tell you that if you just work out and work on your business, build it and they will come, and all these like beautiful people are gonna come chase you down, like as if they can psychically know you're doing this. It doesn't work that way. You have to have what's called a reach. Say the word reach. Right? So going out gives you reach. You can have the best product in the world. If there's no reach and no one's seeing it, it doesn't matter what you have. So it's not quite like that. This investment thing is so crazy. And one of the main reasons that we invest too much is we don't know how to do lead gen. That's the main reason why. We don't have reach and we don't have lead gen. That's why. Again, more like shame of Owen, stuff I'm not proud of. Do you want to know one of the major reasons I've tolerated horrible back-end staff over the years? It's because I'm working so hard to do the things that I love to prep these events, I don't want to do hiring. I have had staff members that were so utterly incompetent, so utterly insubordinate, and I'm not even a guy that would even use a word like insubordinate. Like, I wouldn't even know what the word insubordinate means. I mean, you guys have probably seen me doing seminars where I'm running around at the back trying to see if the cameras are pointed. Well, have you guys ever seen me doing that at my events? Did it ever sink into you like, maybe this guy sucks as a leader? Like, why am I paying guys all this money and they can't even point the camera properly and they're not fired? I mean, like, okay, you know how I don't teach business? You guys ever notice I don't teach business? But you know how you just watched me do a couple 100,000 in sales this weekend and I've done over 100 million in sales in my life and yet I don't teach business? You want to know why? Because I kind of suck. I'm actually a really crappy businessman. I really am. I got a big heart. I don't know how to fire people. I can't stand firing people. I'll get abused through the ass for years. And then what I do is I'll spend years and years just trying to get some person who's never gonna get it, and I make them believe that they can get away with anything. I will be sitting there as they roll their eyes at me when I ask them to do basic things while they're being paid 6-figure paychecks to do a really fun job or more. I mean, because of myself, there's like many people with 6- and 7-figure paychecks with being synergistic with work I've done. And the majority of those people think I'm a freaking moron. And you want to know why that is? Because I let them. People are going to think of you whatever you let them think of you. Your standards are your standards. Now, this happened to me in many ways because I was always just focused on teaching, but the big thing was when I would have, say it's like a cameraman who's blowing it, I just think it's really boring to have to go do hiring. And I find that no matter who I get to do the hiring, they never quite get the person I want, so I wind up having to do it. But look where I failed there as a businessman. I didn't train somebody properly to do hires properly, okay? It's a problem in corporate structure. So because of that, I don't want to have to go hire a new, let's call it a cameraman. So then what happens is, what do I do with the existing cameraman? I double down, I double down, I double down, I double down. Now, in my mind, what do I think that I'm doubling down on that cameraman? What do I think in my brain? What's that?
You're training them. They're going to get better.
In my mind, I'm thinking they're going to get better. They're going to, what's the word? Appreciate it. Say that with me. They're going to appreciate it. But in reality, do you want to know what they're thinking? They're thinking, this guy is getting rich off of me. My work is making him rich. And he's lucky that I even do this work, is what they're thinking. And they interpret it that way because they interpret the doubling down as you needing something from them. It's not in their mind that you're a codependent. It's not in their mind that you have weak boundaries. It's not in your mind that you're a giving, compassionate person. They're literally viewing it that you're getting too much out of it. Meanwhile, the cameramen are all like listening to this in the back right now. They're like, but anyway, so yeah. So anyway, I'm just kidding. I love you guys. So anyway, so look, here's the thing. So that's how they take it. Well, let's take this in your dating life as well, okay? So if that person you're dating is acting really, really terrible and you just tolerate it, do you think they're thinking, wow, that's just a really nice person? No, they're going to interpret that in most cases, if we're just being real. I'm not trying to be mean. This is not a rant. This isn't being negative. This is being positive by looking at what goes on and finding solutions and loving yourself, okay? This is about self-love. It's not about complaints. And it's not about the jaded self-love either. Right? There's a difference between real self-love and jaded self-love. Like, the solution of this isn't like my conclusion of this isn't, so in conclusion, people don't appreciate you being nice and people are crap. That's not my conclusion here. My conclusion is people are pretty awesome when you love yourself and have some boundaries. Okay? So that's what I'm going to lead you to here, but I'm going to give you more specifics. If it's a great question, ask it.
Yeah. So, thank you for all this advice.
Thank you, man. Respect me, though.
Okay, so
respect me. Respect me.
Given the fact that you have 20 years of experience just approaching it all this abundance, and you're the epitome of kind of what we all look up to. Now, if you fell prey to the fact that you have to double down on these people and invest in them, how do we guard ourselves against that?
Well, here's two things I would say. First of all, in your guys' minds, you think I'm owing this guy on this different level. What no one gets, no matter how many times I tell them, I'm no different than you. There's no difference between me and you. None. Also, another thing to keep in mind is this. If you look at me, what makes me an interesting teacher is, in many ways, I'm almost like this big jack guy, but who at one point weighed 105 pounds. And so all the muscles that he built up are really big, but any little muscle that he missed is super small, because he was naturally small. So you'll see me have all these really cool abilities, but any little area that I didn't address is a problem. Does any of you guys feel like that way in your own self-help?
Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, any little area that I missed, because I came from such a damaged place, any area that I missed. So like, I can learn all the dating stuff, approaching, all that, but if I don't go do the type of stuff that we cover in Transformation Mastery, that genre, I am totally in trouble. So that's why we got into that stuff. So, and there's many other areas too. Like for me studying, say, Ross Rosenberg and learning about codependence, I probably watched like 200 videos from that guy. And it was like just speaking my language. I'm like, oh, that's what I did. That's what I did. That's why I did it. That's why I did it. That's why. Like, I'm like, you guys are sitting here in this room. You got to understand, you guys looking at me as a teacher is like a joke to me. 99% of my time is spent as a student, just like you. Then I study, implemented, look at the pitfalls, bad and good, and then I share it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not a teacher, I'm a student. But you guys will think of me as a teacher because you don't see me as a student. Because if I post on my social media, it'll be just reading a book for 8 hours. It's boring. So my social media will be me rocking a crowd. It's also, my social media is business oriented, so I'm showing the stuff that works for my business. So anyway, yeah, I mean, like, another answer I'd have for you too is like, whoever said that if you suck, that you're gonna like easily fix this. And I know you didn't ask that, but like, when I tell guys like, you could date really attractive people, you could get your social, like all that, I never said that like, it's just like that. Like this is a lifetime commitment of getting it down. But the cool thing is when you learn it, you appreciate it. You have real appreciation. But anyway, I'll tell you what I learned and how I've since come a long way. So those are problems that I've had in business. And likewise, I've had it where I've done better. So let's look at some of the things that I learned to do better. So same thing in relationships, I get sucked into it. Usually in my case, the way I get sucked into a relationship is I'm like the big baller boss for the first 6 months or a year. Then the person is really nice to me. I start to kind of get a soft heart, and then I start to put up with more. That's usually my pattern. Like at first, I'm like ice in my veins kind of thing, right? But later I get a soft heart because I see them really trying, and I'm a coach myself, and like they're really trying, and I want to reward them, and then I go down this slippery slope. So basically what happens is the principal investment, the way that it works is that in most cases, the average person is not going to interpret over-investment as you try to help them. They're going to interpret it that you want something from them and that they have the power in that relation. Now, unfortunately, what begins to happen is as you begin to invest, you're burning what's called opportunity cost. Say that word with me again.
Opportunity cost.
So here's the main key of it here. So as you burn more and more and more opportunity cost, you are not developing. You're not developing optimally. And what begins to happen is because you're not developing optimally, people begin to resent you and disrespect you. With every single person who's disrespecting you and resenting you, you're having to double down on time to fix that relationship. So now you're juggling all these balls and you're hardly able to keep them all going. You can't keep all the plates spinning. Now, as you're spending all that time doubling down on those relationships and trying to fix them, you could have been using that time to improve. Here's the key. People have a different face, a different version, depending on the value of the person they're talking to. If you would have doubled down on yourself, they would have treated you different. Now, some of us are spiritually elevated and will treat everybody the same, from the rich guy to the homeless guy. But the average person who you're going to be engaging with is going to have completely different behavior. How do you know? Go to the Playboy Mansion party back when Hugh Hefner was alive. That same person that would be pissing on the floor at your party is going to be like, hello, Mr. Hefner, good to meet you at that party. It's a different version. In the same way, I want you to think of any ex that you've ever had and think of her behavior towards you at the start when she was really into you, and think of how she thought of you by the end, particularly if she threatened to leave and you begged. Who here has ever had a shocking change in behavior from little princess to a demon once you do that? And it is shocking. It is traumatizing. It is shocking. It's quite shocking because you're like, you think of all these tender moments that you spent with the person and all this, and you're like, what happened? What is it? Do you have a question about this, by the way?
No,
got to be loud. It's got to be a really good question.
On the business point, when do you still think of, like, because of social media, I know at some point you thought of yourself as a small business, but social media grew on that?
Yeah.
What was that change? How did it feel? Because, like, I'm part of a small business, but yet, like, I'm on the point where I know I can build it even bigger.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. Is that question, honest answer, I'm asking you guys, is that question related to our topic or no? Yes or no? No. Okay, so there's your answer. Learn to go with the vibe. Have a seat. Thanks. So basically what you have is without bound, but I'd answer you after because I'm a codependent. So what you basically have, okay, so basically what you have is, so basically what you have is this. So you're putting time into that other person, and the failure that you have is called a failure to audit your time. So say that with me. Failure to audit your time. Or say failure to audit my time. Failure to audit my time. So what happens is you never realize the real cost of all this placating and resolution work that you're doing. And it also begins to affect your self-esteem. So it's hitting you at a self-esteem level, it's hitting you at you're burning time, you're burning energy. Also, that person may feel more comfortable and secure if you're a more mediocre version of yourself. So then you even allow yourself to fall into mediocrity in order to placate to them. And by the end of it, they run off into the sunset because the doubling down never, kind of like I was teasing you about the threesome thing, the unicorn thing, it never works. I've never seen it work. It never ends well. And that's what I'm saying when I had that bathtub experience. When I was with that girl, we're in the tub, and I said to myself, there's two paths here. We're at a fork in the road. Either A, I can accept all the good, fun emotions that I got for the first couple months of this, end it now, and literally if I end it now, I will have had a 9-to-1 ratio of good to bad experiences. But what happens in most relationships is that it starts off at 10 to 0 when you first like each other. Then it goes 9 to 1, 8 to 2, 7 to 3, 6 to 4, 5 to 5. And by the time you're done, it's a 10 to 1 negative to positive. And you literally forget why you were even in it. You can't even remember why you got into it. I kind of had that experience with my dating company, right? When I first got into it, it was like, you know, I was with my friends, and we would be out at the club doing, approaching people and talking to people and working on social skills, having epiphanies. We were teaching. Everybody would want to come teach late. I just loved teaching. Towards the end of it, it got to a point where I wasn't even getting time to do my live events anymore, which is what I really liked about it. I wasn't getting to go out with my friends anymore. Most of them lived in different cities. And I was mostly just managing, helping other people to do sales. So this was kind of funny. Like, take that I'm helping another instructor. Say that I helped them to do a $700,000 product launch. So I made them do that, right? Well, in their perspective, they're like, man, if we're splitting that 50-50, I just help you make $350,000. But every product launch that I ever do does a couple $1 million. So I don't even need to do that. Now, that's a simple example where I said, wait a minute, look at what I'm doing wrong. Now, here's the key, though. They don't want me to do that. Do you guys understand that? They don't want me to do that. What do they want me to do? They want me to train somebody. I'm the one that blew it, not them. They want me to train somebody to help them with those tasks. I maybe intervene 5%, but I train somebody what I know to help them. And then what has to happen is I should be growing my brand. I should be that $100 million brand by 40. And then what should happen is then they should be able to look at me with admiration and respect that they're connected to me. Have you guys ever seen it where I've got like these year or two that I barely release videos? You ever seen that? What do you think I'm doing in that time? I'm running around trying to help everybody to get their stuff out and prepare. But what I should have done was I should have had a boundary, and I should have, you know, I should have been training other people how to help them and then growing my thing. That's what they wanted. They didn't want me to do what I did. If you're dating somebody, they don't want you to just keep placating them. They want you to be your best self and to manage your relationship with them in a way that has boundaries, because they're gonna, look, if you've got a kid, your kid is gonna want to stay up late, your kid's gonna want every cookie, your kids might wanna get a tattoo, but they don't want you to let them do it. They're just kind of testing the boundary. If you've got a significant other, they're gonna test the boundary. If you're working with someone, they're gonna test the boundary. If anybody that I ever worked with or dated tested the boundary and I caved, and later it shifted the buyer-seller dynamic, it shifted the frame too much and got toxic, that wasn't their fault. I'm not blaming them or being jaded or bitter. Plenty of people have business partners who don't act like that. Plenty of people date people who don't act like that. If I've had a number of different people I've worked with or dated who acted like that, what's the common denominator in this equation? Anybody getting that sense as you're hearing me talk right now? Like, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's this guy. So as I was learning this, I began to realize I've got to audit my time. And what you have to do is you've got to, there's these two sides to it. That's really key here. There's these two sides. One side of it is that there's a joy in giving. I am the person that I am, the speaker that I am, the person that I am because I'm a giver. So there's a joy in giving. And people who don't get that are missing out. People that are always making everything this, whether it's a zero-sum game or asking what am I getting out of it, they're never gonna have that joy of being a giver. And they're missing out. They'll never be spiritually at a place that they could be at. But there's a flip side too. In spiritual growth, what you'll learn is that every truth is but a half-truth. Say this with me. Every truth is but a half-truth. There's always the other side of the coin. There's always the other side of the coin. Say, it's always a paradox. It's always a paradox. Okay? Literally, everything in spiritual growth, in life itself, it's always a paradox. There's another side of the coin. Every truth is about a half-truth. If you've ever read the book The Kabbalion, they talk about that, and you could dig a little deeper there. You could agree or disagree, because certain things here I know for sure, other things a little more debatable. But I would kind of go with that. You know, I would kind of go with that one. So while on one side, you basically have it where, yeah, giving is amazing, and I've grown through my giving, there's another side to it which is called have boundaries. And what happens is you actually wind up giving less when you have less boundaries, or when you don't have boundaries. Like, no matter how much I may want to give, Whose existence is a higher net positive, mine or Anthony Robbins? Maybe not to you personally, but to the sum total number of people. Who is impacting more people, myself or Tony? It's true. I keep it real, right? I keep it real. Like when I come up here bragging and boasting about certain things I could do, I've worked hard to do those things, but there's a lot of areas I'm working on myself. So that being the case, a guy like Tony, he's going to be able to affect more people because he's done more to build his own thing. So be careful about being a charity. Now, here's essentially what's going to happen to you, and I think this is a major takeaway from it. In your dating life, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get certain skills. And as you get these certain skills, you're going to meet incredible people. And the dynamic will usually have a certain momentum right after you met them. There's a momentum to that dynamic right after you met them. Because you met them and it was fun, there's a momentum to it that you'll keep easily for the first few months. You ever had it where you met a new person and the dynamic was really fresh for the first several months? Okay. But then what's going to typically happen in most cases is they're going to test boundaries. And if you're not old and wise enough and you haven't been around the block a couple times and seen what can happen, they will push the boundary a little bit. You'll allow it to get away from you. And another really big thing is you won't set the right frames from the beginning. Say that after me. Set the right frames from the beginning. Set the right frames from the beginning. You will learn over time that you don't realize it. You think when you're in the beginning of any new relationship, whether it's work or romantic, you're going to think that you're kind of in this stationary spot. You don't realize you're actually in an inner tube in a river, and you're going down, and there's these different forks that you're crossing. And for you to actually get back to that fork, you literally would have to swim against the current as rocks and sticks hit you in the face. Say I had a free intern working for me. And then I say, you're going to work for free, and in exchange, you get to come to an event or something like that, right? What if I were to say to any of my staff here, like John, how long have we been working together?
About a year and a half.
Okay, well, how about in RSD as a whole? 2013. John, I got an idea. How about instead of getting paid, you become an intern?
Sounds good.
Okay, he just got a raise. Okay, so anyway, look, but you see, but John, let's be real, to make this real. What would you really say if I stopped and came to you and said, you're going to become an intern?
Yeah, that'd be a little disappointing.
A little disappointing. and is that to say the least, or is it just maybe only a little disappointing?
No, I'd be like, fuck that.
Okay, he'd say fuck that, okay. So you see the main idea, right? So, but here's what's funny, okay? Now let me put it to you this way, John. How about this? What if I'd said to you that you're going to be an intern, and in exchange for being an intern, you would get to come be a part of certain events. Maybe those events you could do networking for some other business that you're doing. Maybe you'd wind up meeting high status people. Maybe I'd be inviting you to certain parties that I'm doing that I let interns come to. You're going to keep a regular job, so you'll make your money through that, but maybe you contribute a little bit a week as a free intern, and you do that on an ongoing basis to get ongoing new connections, parties, access to events. Maybe I throw some girls your way, stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? Now, what if I'd made that agreement early, and then you'd had time to plan for it, so therefore now you could plan around it?
Then, yeah, that'd be better.
Okay, do you guys see the difference there? So there's agreements that are getting made. They have to be win-win, but there's agreements that are getting made by default. But see, here's the thing. What if I said that to you now that you've been working on a paycheck, and to be fair, you already get to come to my parties. You already get to meet most of my business connections. You already have been to so many of my events you probably don't even need to see anymore. Would you agree to that now?
It would be harder to agree to that.
Thank you, John. And that's him trying to make sure I don't get mad or anything like that. Look, the answer, let's be honest. It would be harder to agree to that. Would a more accurate answer be fuck no?
Fuck yes. Probably.
Yeah, okay. So he's a very nice guy. So it's fuck no, right? So I'm trying to make it real to you. I try to keep it real. So if we're keeping it real, there's agreements being made early on and frames being set. And you can get people to agree to almost anything if they have time to process it, they have time to consider it, if they determine it to be a win-win for them, and if they can see how they're not being disrespected or their boundaries are being messed with. Because part of why John wouldn't agree to that, it's also a personal boundaries thing, right? It's like there's an instinct that we have as human beings that if we made an agreement, we can't allow other people to break those agreements later on down the track. It's just a common thing. It's just the way that it works, right? So that being the case, there's an instinct in people. So you've got to be aware of that you're getting those agreements. Once you've been around the block a couple times, you're going to learn how to make agreements early on. Okay? You're going to learn how to make those agreements because you're going to see where bad agreements mess you up, and you're going to learn how to make the right agreements. Also, and here's the other side of it, if you're doubling down on yourself, your value will raise. You will raise in your value, which means that your base of power is higher, which means that you can get a better agreement. And the problem is, unfortunately, is when you meet someone who you really love, but you haven't been around the block a few times, you'll often make a bad deal. That's number one. You'll make bad deals on the front end. There's a bad dynamic established. Because you're so excited about it, you're running into it head first. You haven't been around the block enough times, so you don't even know what you're getting into. Then from there, you don't have enough value, and usually what winds up, so then you're not even agreeing to a good deal because you haven't been doubling down yourself, so you don't have enough value. And then from there, what happens is when they start to pull away, because you've been doubling down on them and putting your time into them, we're too afraid to lose our investment. Is there any poker players in here? Could a poker player who's articulate and loud stand up and explain the, actually could any poker players come to the front and explain this idea of cutting off a losing streak? Because this is really, really powerful. Okay, so come to the front. Do you guys have that mic? Because I want everybody to hear it. John, since you are being paid? I'm kidding. Do you have the mic? Just joking. Yeah. Okay, so run. Show me a run. Show me your best run. Okay, so basically what you have, explain to them, oh, great. Explain to them, and I think you already know what I'm getting at. I probably don't even need to explain it, right? What happens in poker when somebody starts losing and then they just double down and they completely lose it, they go into a frenzy, and then they just get cleaned out? Explain to them what happens and how you have to learn to avoid it. First explain what happens, then explain how to avoid it. The discipline of it.
So they probably go on tilt, which is like...
Louder.
They go on tilt, which is like they get very mad at the players by their like verbal and also like could be like verbal attack and stuff. And I think to avoid it is to be a man and control yourself.
How bad can it get if somebody starts losing and doubling down? How bad?
Yeah, very bad.
How bad?
Very bad.
Like what? What kind of things happen?
It fucking sucks.
Have you ever just fleeced yourself?
Yeah, wiped myself out completely. I was just trying to like earn a little bit extra cash. I got like a little side money from DJing.
Tell them.
Sorry, hey guys. I got a little side money from DJing, like about $300. Just went in and I just kept making like all the wrong deals, and it just kept going down and down, and I just kept convincing myself, okay, now this time it's going to go back up, and the funnel just keeps going down and it just keeps getting worse until you hit absolute zero. Some cases in debt. Yeah, in debt too. They'll even start calling in loans.
Yeah, I totally agree with him.
Got it. Anybody else who plays poker that has more to add to this? Come to the front and add to it if you want. I just think it's this concept in poker. It's this thing of sinking good money after bad is so relatable to a relationship where it's getting more and more toxic, and you just can't accept, because here's the thing, if it's getting worse and worse, and you've had all these arguments and toxicity, and then you were to end it now, what would it mean about all these issues you've had? What would it mean?
You're a dumbass.
It would mean that you're a dumbass. It would mean there wasn't some big point. You want to share?
Yeah, I think in psychology that's called the sunk cost fallacy, where the more you lose, like it just keeps on going further and further down.
Got it. Anything more to add to that too?
Yeah, just what he was saying, like when people go on tilt, it just gets really bad because they'll keep doubling down until they have nothing left.
Got it. Could you explain it too?
Yeah.
It's great.
So I just want to add one thing to that. If anybody here who's ever played poker before, if you're like up, let's say $100, you bought in for 2, you're up to 3. That $100 is worth way less psychologically than if you were down from 200 to the 100, right? So maybe you're doing well with the girl originally, like she's giving you good validation, you're having, fun, whatever. Then you see her with another guy, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what the fuck just happened? I was just doing so well, and it can just, fucking drive you crazy.
Do you guys see a lot of similarity as poker players in what goes on in relating with other people, either in business or in dating relationships where the person these mechanisms of the mind can make the person crazy and really harm themselves?
Yeah, it kind of goes into what you were saying yesterday about the winner effect.
Yeah.
Like the more you're winning, the better you play, the better decisions you'll keep making. So you'll just be like on an upward streak. But as soon as you start making like bad plays, or you get like, let's say somebody bluffs you really bad, then you're just going to keep going down and down.
Yeah, and also
that's a great point.
And also, I think like as a man, you have to like work your logic more and stop getting emotional too much. You know.
I have a feeling you're good at that.
Huh?
I have a feeling you're good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be very aggressive.
I'd probably be a terrible poker player. I'd be like,
I learned how to control myself.
Cool.
Basically, you through like driving and stuff like.
That's amazing. And by the way, what he was saying about the winner effect is that when you're winning, you're thinking more clearly. You have more access to your faculties. When you're losing, you're thinking less clearly. Have you ever had in a dating experience where because you're losing, you go to that person, you're already walking on eggshells, you're already nervous, and then they can feel that nervousness off you, so then they can push you into weird dynamics? You ever had that? Yeah. Has everybody here ever begged an ex back and have it be utterly pathetic? Put your hand up if you've done that. Okay, it's a really messed up experience. Could you guys give these guys a hands for that? Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I just want to hammer it home a bit because it's really key. So what's unfortunate is you'll get to a point where you've got this person who you really like, whether you're working with them or whatever it is, and they push you into a point where it is so messed up what's happening. And then what happens is you're attached to that one person. You have all these great memories together. You don't want to give it up. You had such high hopes for that situation. And what happens is, usually, the more you beg, they'll eventually what's called the discard. They'll do what's called the discard. Say that word, the discard. And then usually they'll even trash you after they leave. That's the best part of the thing. They'll discard you and then even trash you. Usually because once they're in that situation where they've been like sponging off you, it's never enough just to get that. They've also got to get in a couple rabbit shots on the way out the door, or even steal some stuff on the way out the door. I mean, it's crazy what they'll do. And so then what happens is you look at the relationship and you're like, why can't it just be like it was? Like, I could go back to how it was, but they can't. Like that girl in the bathtub with me, in my mind, I'm like, I am ready to go back to just joking around and having fun the way that we used to, but they're not. And the thing to realize is they probably won't be. It comes down to, again, the ROI on your time. So this is what's generally going to happen. You're going to have these phases where you either work with people or have a relationship, whatever it is. It'll go good for a while, but because you're not an old timer, you haven't been around the block, you're a younger man, younger woman, whatever it is, then you're going to agree to things you shouldn't agree to. You're going to double down. You're going to invest in them more than yourself, all that. Then what will happen is you'll have experiences that are very painful. Very, very painful. And once you realize that you're probably going to get discarded, once you realize it doesn't end well when you double down, I mean, I've had situations where I was doubling down using 20, 30, 40% of my mental emotional capital for 2 years trying to fix something. And in the end, here's the best part, it will explode even worse. Say that with me. It will explode even worse. The longer that you delay it exploding, the worse the discard will be, the more disrespect, I mean, it gets bad. So then what you've got to do is you've got to accept it's going to end. So with the girl with the tub thing, for example, I quickly ended it. And then what I did was I immediately went back to doing parties, container events, working on myself, working on my health, working on my happiness, and I wound up dating way better girls. Way, way, way better girls. And those same girls were willing to do way more for me, willing to agree to almost anything because they're getting a win out of it. Well, why are they getting a win out of it? Because I'm working on myself, so I have more to offer. And that's where you become a real boss. And it's the same thing in work, where sometimes, unfortunately, you just look at different dynamics you've created or deals you've created or whatever it is, and you're looking at it, you're going, this is crazy. I want this more than they do. And this is where those memes that you see on the internet come up. A lot of women post them too. You think that as a guy you go through this? I think women go through this like crazy. How much have you guys seen women posting memes where it's like, girl, if he's not calling you and he's not chasing you, he's just not that into you. You ever been seeing like a lot of female friends posting that? Really attractive women too. You're thinking, wow, I wouldn't, but it's like I was saying in your case, If it wasn't the guy that they would do that for, they often don't even like it. They actually appreciate and value the guy that they double down and triple down for more. It's because you're more emotionally relevant. That emotional up and down creates a higher degree of emotional relevance. So they meet this new person and they're numb to them. But for the person that they had to double down, they gave more of themselves to try to make it work. It could never quite work, the drama, the soap opera. They actually feel more emotional relevance to that person. I'm not suggesting to make that effect intentional. I think that's weird and creepy. I do not believe in manipulation. I'm anti-manipulation. I'm pro-equality. I'm pro-love. I'm pro people coming together. But I'm also not pro people getting abused. And I'm certainly not pro not loving yourself. And I'm certainly not pro being a codependent. Because, and by the way, again, if it worked, maybe I'd have a different opinion. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Trust me. I've been down this path. It doesn't work. Quick question?
Yeah, exactly on what you're saying. Why do you think doubling down is the default? Because I feel like we all kind of know on some level that it doesn't work, but at the same time, it's like the default.
I could tell you why I do it, and then I could suggest why other people do it. I do it because of my home life growing up, was probably missing certain caretaking. Okay, so you know how when I can usually see if somebody had good parents within 2 seconds of talking to them. If somebody was, you know that thing called love? Honestly, it's something I never understood. That's a real thing. Like, I always thought it was more of like this kind of chemical thing, or kind of like, I mean, I always knew love is real and whatnot, but like, from what I can, and this is really weird what I'm gonna say, but like, from what I can tell, if you kiss a baby and hug the baby and love the baby and compliment the baby and make the baby feel safe up till the point that it's more secure, that baby will usually have, and far more often, a lot of self-respect and be a lot less likely to fall into these dynamics. But if your home life wasn't that good and it was kind of dysfunctional and whatnot, you will chase that scarce love like you were chasing that scarce love from your parents. So who here had it? This is never criticizing your parents, because your parents still gave you life and you should love them and appreciate them. But who here's parents did what's called the best they knew how? You guys catch that joke? Who here's parents did the best they knew? Who here's parents loved them but did the best they knew how? Okay, so that being the case, if your parents loved you but did the best they knew how, aka totally mess you up, you didn't get that love. It's almost like it's a leaking bucket. It's this leaking bucket of love, and you crave it, you need it, and you're trying to get that love that you didn't get. And the way that that usually happens, according to guys like Ross Rosenberg, is one of two things. A, and this is why we got into TM, by the way. TM, Transformation Master with Julian, is meant to address this. That's why we got so into it. Because you give guys these skills to meet women, and it's almost like giving a bazooka to a kid. Now they go meet some great person, and then, trust me. I had that bazooka as a, myself. So basically what happens is you chase that love from the other person, and when you can't quite get it, it's like a replication of the parent, and then you chase it harder and harder. And what happens is, so you have this thing called personal boundaries. Also, by the way, just like love is like this real thing, personal boundaries is like this real thing. And basically think of love as like a liquid. Okay, love is like the water that's in this, and the boundary is like the bottle. It's the thing that contains it. So every time that somebody breaks your boundary, there's a little leak of that self-love or even other love or total love quantified. And basically what you have is that it's like a leak, and it leaks out, and you stayed in a situation that broke your self-respect and broke your boundaries in order to keep getting love. And this is why if somebody has been abused, they usually can't leave. Who here has heard about domestic abuse situations where the person was being abused massively but literally couldn't leave? It's called a trauma bond? Okay. Well, I think that's also, I think that's loosely related, but a similar kind of thing. And the thing is, like, so I remember after Julian had his media episode, I really wanted to find out, because I'd seen that clearly, what I learned in the Julian media episode was that clearly a lot of women had been through some bad stuff, because they were kind of looking at our like dating stuff through that lens, and I was curious what that lens was. So I volunteered at a clinic where I would actually help women. I don't see, again, when I do charity, I don't brag about it, so you guys have probably never heard this, but because I'm doing it for me, but I wanted to volunteer at a clinic where women who had been through abuse could come talk about it and have someone to talk to. So I went there to learn what was going on. And I remember my friend Ariel was talking to this girl, because she was the one leading it, and she's the most amazing woman. And she's leading it. And I remember she says to this one woman, she's like, tell me what happened. And she's kind of looking like she's frozen. And she's like, you know, he calls me an asshole, and he says I'm worthless. He says I'm cheating on him. I'm like, and then Ariel was like, sweetie, like very gently, like, sweetie, you can leave him anytime. And when she says, sweetie, you can leave him anytime, you just, and this is here's where it gets weird. This is a highly intelligent woman, but just is having this thing done to her. I mean, this is why this doubling down thing is pretty real, right? So, and she's like, sweetie, you can leave him anytime. And you see her go, sitting there, it's like she's frozen. It's like a Sub-Zero Mortal Kombat. They freeze the person, so they can't leave. Because what happens is your self-love empties out. They've leaked it, and now they're putting it in the top to top it up a little bit, and it's leaking. They've got you completely by the balls, and it can happen to man or woman. It's very sad. And so Ross Rosenberg, he'll call that self-love deficit disorder. He says that codependence is actually like ADD, attention deficit disorder. He says codependence is like self-love deficit disorder. So if you're somebody who suspects you might be codependent, here's the way it works. At a younger age, you don't get the love you need, and usually one of two things happen. A, you learn to become the perfect child and try to get that love. Or B, and here's where it gets really crazy, you go in the exact opposite direction and you become what's called a narcissist with NPD. So what a narcissist does is, in my view anyway, so this is like my own speculation, what I believe a narcissist does is the narcissist is looking for that like self-love, can't get it, so whereas the codependent begs for the love and tries to become the perfect person, the narcissist takes that, like those like love receptors, and fuses them as this ultimate form of self-love, and it misshapes the brain. It damages, probably, maybe irreversibly, the brain. Pretty bad stuff. Parents can really mess up their kids.
Can you explain that again?
So basically, you react one of two ways. A, you become a codependent. I'm gonna be the best little public speaker and dating teacher ever. I'm gonna release 3-hour videos on YouTube. I'm gonna release 4-hour videos on YouTube. I'm gonna do 4-day free tours. Do you love me now?
Yes.
I'm gonna be so good at dating that everyone love me. Thanks, guys. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so, okay, give me that. Okay, so, thank you. Yeah, that. Okay, so now, okay, so now I could see this in myself because I would see it when I'm getting a whole bunch of internet comments and everybody's loving it, but that one person doesn't like the video, and who do I want to respond to? Does anybody here ever feel that way when you make a post? It's that same codependence. Why are you focusing, instead of focusing on other people who love you, you're so paranoid that that one person doesn't like you. What a narcissist does is the opposite. Narcissists can be some of the most toxic, aggravating to deal with, dark, win-lose people you've ever seen. And so a lot of people will hate narcissists. They'll hate them. But, and trust me, narcissists are one of the most hardest people you ever deal with. But here's the thing. Why are the narcissists doing it? Here's the theory behind it. Basically what happened was they didn't get enough love as a kid. It could also be genetic. I want to be clear about that. So again, Owen's strength area, dating. Owen's speculation area, this. So basically okay, I'm kind of speculating here, okay, but at least gets you thinking about it. So what happens is someone who's a narcissist, they didn't get enough love as a kid, and their brain is like, okay, we're not going to get love anymore. We've got to be self-sufficient. Here's what they do. They reframe everything that they could never be wrong. They're always the best. They have this super grandiose sense of self, and they are completely self-serving to the point they don't care if they screw over other people. Who here has ever dealt with somebody with NPD before? Put your hands up. Is there anybody here who would give, if it's related to this, give maybe a 30-second description of dealing with somebody with NPD at the front, if you kind of if you were kind of curious about it, you studied it?
You know, actually my business partner is one of those people. And
what a coincidence.
You know, I thought that, you know, I mean, I've had struggles with drug addiction and other things, such as being a codependent too. And I've read actually some of those books that you're talking about.
Good.
And I've listened to some videos, but the more I gave into it, the more it drained me. And then I kept kind of getting into this self-loathing and just downward spiral. And, you know, it was kind of like God complex too, I guess I can mention. Like, I can be the one to fix this. And
oh, I definitely have that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then it basically just became, you know, where I had to like detach with hate from it, which is good. I mean, I detach with love or detach.
How do you explain what someone with NPD is like?
They're just very, yeah, they're very, it's all about them. And it's just like he could be standing right here and literally like bump into me and he doesn't even see me. It's not even there. It's just
hey, but what's funny is if you don't know what NPD is, you keep thinking you're tripping. And they do this thing called gaslighting, say that word, gaslighting. And if you don't know what gaslighting is, they'll make you think it was your fault. And they're so sure of it, you're like, oh man, okay. You know, and that'll happen. Could you give your take on it too?
I would do this. If you're dealing with someone with NPD, don't try to argue with them. Even if you're right, they will out-talk you. They will make you seem
They thrive on argument and chaos. That is their domain. It's like playing the swimming shark game. Like you're with a shark and you're swimming. You're like, I'm going to outswim the shark and bite it. It's built to do this.
What they also do is, depending on how long you know them, they will get you to crave their validation. They will come up to you as like a superstar and like it's like your honor and your pleasure to meet them and to know them. So that way, like when like down the line when they like start framing it like you're fucking up, it's like, oh wow, what did I do? What must have I done? Because this person is so great. Because this person is so awesome. You know, it must be me.
Yeah, and it's that validation you can't quite get that you crave, and that's why Ross Rosenberg, he calls it human magnet syndrome. Say the word human magnet syndrome. Okay, that's actually a book by Ross Rosenberg. But the idea of it is that codependent gets attracted to the narcissist, and the narcissist loves the codependent. Yep.
I've actually become very interested in this because I actually go to meetings related to some of this stuff, and I've experienced some of it in my
little
family,
louder to respect them.
But I also had some of it in a relationship. I was actually married to somebody who I was suggested it was borderline personality disorder, which is like superpowered NPD.
I also have a video on that if you've ever seen it.
And it's the gaslighting thing. If you do not know what gaslighting is, you should really research it because it's really damaging. If you don't know that someone's doing it to you, you will think that you're the biggest piece of shit that ever lived. So it's really empowering to understand because people will gaslight you for all kinds of stuff. It's not even just relationships. It'll happen in your work. It'll happen in all kinds of stuff. But there's a book called Gaslighting, and it's very powerful to understand. If you don't have the boundaries, you don't have the defense to question what somebody is posing as your fault or your responsibility, you will get screwed up really bad. You need to have the ability to say, something's not right here.
And the thing is, people like us will attract those people.
Yeah.
We attract them proactively. So when you see that that's happening, you have to recognize the common denominator is you. You're the one attracting this.
And people around you will get pulled into it because there's also a thing called narcissistic smear campaigns. And if you don't have a good environment around you, people who will get pulled into it can't tell who's the source of the problem.
No, literally, it is so crazy, and there's nothing you can say to do about it. Like, you can't give your point because that person will look so sure of themselves. There's nothing you can say about it. All that you can do, and here's the problem, if you argue back, that only energizes them, and then they keep going. So all you can do is just go, whatever.
Well, and
because by the way, it's not enough that they like robbed you, got at you. On the way out, and they do the discard, they've got to get some rabbit shots in too.
They've got that are listening to them too. You're not going to win them over.
That's right.
You're screwed with the whole lot. So you have to burn all of it and move on. It's a really weird phenomenon. It's funny because you've been talking about this for a while, and I have been really adamant about learning about all this.
Has it helped you?
Well, I honestly went and saw people, and my first concern was how much of this am I doing? I'm just as willing to look at my own shit.
We're the common denominator.
We're culpable.
Yeah.
And when we talk about that in the meetings, and I never sit in front of anybody and say I'm fucking perfect and I don't do anything wrong. I don't do that. But it gets very gray when you're trying to figure out how much am I contributing to this and how much is this person doing this to me. And if you keep playing the game and you don't pull yourself out, you start apologizing for shit you don't need to apologize for. You start jumping into scenarios you don't need to jump into. That's not it's not your fault, and it's all about boundaries. And if your boundaries are not solid, the power dynamics that you talk about, they shift real fast. You start cheapening your price tag really fast, and all of a sudden you are something else you didn't start as, because you didn't have the ability to decipher what was going on. And people who are manipulative, they're masters at this shit, and they don't care. They don't. The deforming of the brain, it's a real thing. It actually happens.
Yeah, because what happened is they didn't get love as a kid, so instead of going codependent, they shut that loop off so that it was self-feeding, and it's always like, you know how like a mother would love a kid, like, you're the best little son, I love you, you're so amazing. So their brain does that for them. But in order to do that, the price tag is that everybody else is wrong, they're right about everything, they should get whatever they want. And once the brain has done that, the common denominator you see with personality disorders, it's unfixable because the person doesn't even want to become aware or have the capacity to become self-reflective. Quick point about it.
What's the difference between MPD and having a massive ego?
It can often be the same. But having a great confident ego where you're not going to hurt other people and just be a complete jerk is different from someone who's very win-lose.
Actually, there's one.
Unaware massive ego is like.
What is it? One is a brain misfire. The other is maybe somebody who just really pumped themselves up. But you know what? You can kind of cultivate your own frickin' NPD if you're not careful.
There is one big marker, actually. It's a lack of empathy. That's the big thing you're looking for. So somebody who's actually truly narcissistic, they won't have that true ability to connect and care about somebody else. They
can front like they do, but it's with a purpose. Could you guys give me a hand for that? That's pretty powerful.
I have hello, I'm on. An ex-family member that was such a powerful figure with a powerful personality that it was almost like my whole family and I saw friends walking on eggshells around this individual, and it was almost like a hypnosis that I saw like right through this from the start. And the rest of the family, it was like just got convinced that this person was always right, and it was this total level of trust. And actually, my parents ended up losing pretty much everything, house and all their money. And I saw this happening, but I was unable to, I tried, but it was just so powerful, I was unable to do anything to stop it. And it was like this, it was like a hypnotic effect on everybody else. And, you know, bad things happen.
It's like there's an energy there, and the energy in the room is a little darker, intenser when you're around it, and that person's able to impose their will with such ease. And normally when somebody's that confident, it's because they're telling the truth and they know better than you. But in this case, they're just kind of always like that by default, whether they're right and win-win or not. Could you guys give me a hand for that too? Yep.
All right, so as a kid, I actually grew up, my cousin was actually...
Louder.
He was a narcissist, and basically everything they said kind of applies to him as well. So basically what I would do is I actually like fucked up my entire childhood in order to compensate for his beliefs and like kind of like trying to ramp up his like self-esteem.
That's a key thing what he just said. You can lose decades.
I lost fucking my entire childhood for like one person, only for him to be a fuck up and like me being fucked up in the process.
No different, by the way, than if a guy or girl with the wrong partner can lose decades trying to please them. Or you can do this in business, trying to please a business partner who's just never going to be able to play fair. This is why this is so important, is decades can go by. Do you remember yesterday during some of the self-help talk we did, I talked about how if you're not learning and kind of making corrections and getting a coach, that you can lose decades just derping? This is one element of that derping. Another thing to notice too, now we're in a certain mood here, right? I could shift the mood to funny, but we're kind of in a zone and a mood here, a little introspective and somber. And I kind of like to be like that on occasion because sometimes I do videos where I just act the fool the whole time, so I like to switch it up. But the base thing that you'll notice with everybody up here, and you'll notice this whether it's Ross Rosenberg talking or anybody who teaches this area, it's usually very sensitive souls and usually people that are very sweet. Do you see how sweet all these guys are? Funny too how in society these days they'll like, you know, demonize guys as just like a bunch of jerks. Like they'd see you guys at like a dating seminar and think like you're a bunch of like jerks out trying to be a big player. Like, you know what I mean, right? Like half the time, most of the guys I teach are like these sensitive guys that are like really hurt, just try to man up a bit. But the point is, you'll see that general thing. If you have that, you have to be aware that the sad look that you see comes from years of not having a boundary. And because there's no boundary there, it's like, again, the bottle and then the water, it sucks out. And what you're left with is just wishing that people could like love each other and like be as nice as you are sometimes and like that kind of thing. And they're just not like that. And you can't figure out why. And this is why in what we teach a lot of things about personal boundaries, self-love, inner game, getting present in the moment, letting go of trauma, all that kind of stuff, establishing boundaries, establishing a proper dynamic, valuing yourself, doubling down on yourself. We do that because these are the keys to fixing this area and going from a very bad situation into a situation where you're a complete boss. So what's funny is any one of us up here has that capacity to go from being the one getting kind of pounded to being a complete baller. But it's not going to happen on its own, right? You've got to heal that trauma. You've got to create better boundaries. You've got to double down on yourself. And a big one, and this really sucks, you've got to cut the people out of your life that aren't willing to respect you for the value you have to offer. And in complete sadness and loneliness, it's very sad, it's very lonely. Especially people that have codependence will feel loneliness like 5 times worse than the average person. That's what they say. And basically you'll feel way more intense, and it's like it's overwhelming. And then basically you've got to just build your life back up from the ashes. Build that, because it's not just inner game. It's trauma release, inner game, loving yourself, but it's also, you know, getting back in with healthy friends, healthy hobbies, healthy passions, healthy exercise. Like, you know, loving yourself also with the activities that you're doing, not just like an incantation or release, but those are equally important. I view it as 50-50, equally important. They each give a context. Each one gives context to the other, okay? So they're both so important. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I think one of the biggest values of this whole thing, if you guys don't pay attention, is this. So when you guys all come here, you guys should be getting phone numbers and meeting and hooking up. This is the main thing to me, is the value, is meeting up with other people.
Yeah, you guys did that, so thank you. That's really awesome. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Very important, so yeah.
Okay, so what he was saying is, like, we are sweet souls, and like we've had our boundaries crossed. So for all of us in this room, there's gonna come a time when someone tries to push. Usually no one's just gonna try and come and like push you and shove you out the way, but it'll be little, subtle, tiny, almost microscopic things.
The frog in the boiling water type thing.
You would think that like you're crazy for even considering. Like these people will just kind of just try to like push you in just ways that you don't even think you are being pushed, and then it builds up exponentially and then gradually, and then before you know it, they're calling you stupid or dumb, and you just kind of let it go and let it pass because my friend.
Well, it's also the path of least resistance, so for you to cut them off and then go back to doing your own thing would hurt in that moment because you've given too much of yourself to them already. But you've got to be willing to kind of barrel through that sadness and rebuild yourself on a proper foundation. I'll have more to say about it, but keep going.
Okay, I also want to say you also are going to have to, all of us in this room, if we're trying to reach any kind of goals anywhere, we have to adjust to loneliness. We have to adjust to loneliness.
And learn to be happy and loving yourself in, you know, moments of solitude, and even appreciate them.
That's exactly like what I was going to say, because it's
great point there too.
It's just kind of like there are like so many people around that are just like really not about, like, you guys probably all have goals and like dreams. You're probably not trying to play this game to play small. You're trying to play big, but like the masses, most people are just trying to stay here, and I'm pretty sure everyone in this room is trying to like go up here. So just get used to like the solitude, because like everyone says it's lonely at the top. So
yeah, or don't even view it as lonely, but view it as a beautiful moment to recharge and love yourself. Yep.
Okay. So, to come full circle, there's something that I think, I definitely don't mean to cut off the flow and give a specific story, but it is related. And I think it's something that we can all appreciate because it's an issue that maybe you have a little bit of a blind spot to yourself.
Sure.
And I've articulated to friends that are deep into this with me. I've been doing this, following you for like 6 years. And there's this. Okay? What I've gotten, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room can relate, what I've gotten from sitting in this environment and being steeped in this type of thinking and talking for hours, what happens is I realize the range of regular thoughts that I have every day is so beneath my potential. It's so fucking stupid. I can't emphasize enough. I just look, I go, holy shit, actually, what I think about all the time is so dumb compared to what I could do.
Not realizing you're gonna die someday and burning all this time and energy on nonsense.
Yeah, no, preposterous. So, this is what I'd like to say, okay? Just a quick analogy. What I feel like is, to give an analogy to what I just described, it's like I've been walking in this endless field like just in a derp state. And all of a sudden, like the overcast that's been there for years, I've just been walking in like endless grass for years. The sky opens up and light hits me for the first time and I'm like, oh! And then like I see like a golden city and like people laughing and music. And here's what's gonna happen. And if for anyone who's been to a free tour before, I know you can relate. You're gonna go home and it's gonna die slowly. All the inspiration you feel right now, you might make a slight improvement, but in a big way, you're gonna shift back. Because your entire life, all of your circumstances are built to keep you where you were. That's why you were where you were.
This is also what I keep telling you guys about creating mastermind groups. What he's saying is exactly why. That's exactly why you need mentors, mastermind groups, and people to stay on your ass.
Yes, and there's something that I'm going to ask you.
Of course.
That it's going to add. I think it's going to add massive value. For sure. It's something that I feel has been missing. I've articulated and people have agreed.
What is it?
And here's what it is.
Okay.
Everything's but a half truth. The other side of the maxim. There's no magic pill. People who look for like, they're like Owen's up here like speaking gold, like the truth, gold for hours, and the guy stands up. He's like, how do I get laid? Like he wants the 2 sentences. Like there is no 2 sentences. But the other side of there's no easy answer is, okay, no, there isn't. There's no magic pill. But there might be a few things, a few bullet points maybe you can give us that we can hold on to like life rafts when it does get extremely hard and the hours of content is just like, we're broken spiritually. We're like trying to hold on and we're like, can I just have a fucking bullet point to like make it through this day so I can wake up refreshed tomorrow and come back to this hard study? And those bullet points, if you could give that to us.
I think the biggest thing that I think I built a multi-million-dollar empire on the fact that I just approach. That simple act of approaching. Seriously. And if you ever read the book The Game by Neil Strauss, and one of the ways that he kind of, you know, talked in his way about me was he's like, Tyler Durden thought you could cure cancer with approaching. Because my mentor Mystery was sitting in the house stewing on a breakup or whatever it was. I'm like, get out and approach. In my experience, I could be going through the lowest thing of my life, even a horrible breakup, and I just go out and I remember, wait a minute, I am awesome. Life is awesome. This is so fun. That is the biggest one I'd say, honestly. That's why, by the way, guys, they come up to me all the time and they see me, right? Guys that knew me like 10, 20 years ago, and they're like, and they'll come up to me all like holier than thou. And I get it, they're just trying to like give their take, so I'm not hating on it, but it's just funny. That's just kind of how I feel about it. And they're like, so are you like still going out? Don't you have kids? And I'm like, okay, so the alternate is like, the alternate on a Friday night is what? Like I'm open to not going out anymore. Tell me the other cool thing to do than go out and share joy with my fellow humans on a Friday night. For you guys that went out with me last night, what more healing activity could I do than go talking to a bunch of people? That's why, by the way, it's such a shame. A lot of the media representation of dating advice for guys, it's this beautiful healing thing for guys that are just trying to get themselves out there, and they're trying to represent it as this like win-lose creepy thing. And I'm like, man, why don't you guys come hang out with us for a minute? Like, what? Like, yo, some of us are some hurting souls too. Like, we're just like, yeah, maybe we do the odd locker room talk and act like assholes for a minute to joke around, but like the real core of what this is something beautiful. So I find like when you guys see me out like dancing with the whole group and singing and having fun, I'm doing that. That's a very healing thing. And that's why no matter how much inner game I've studied, and I've studied a ton of it and I teach, I'm still like, you got to go out. That's just my view of it. And if you're not someone who's going to go out, then find something else you're passionate about where you connect with other people and challenge yourself and push the envelope and pushing your edge. You'll feel great. So that's the importance of it. I mean, that's why I even kept teaching this 5 years longer than I should have, was because I believe that much in the healing power of going out. But I'm taking it from a different perspective. And yeah, it's fun to hook up or meet people or get laid or whatever, but there's also many, many deeper levels to that. So that would be my main thing. Yeah. Can you guys give me a hand with these? Thanks. Thank you, boys. I appreciate that, man. Thanks, boys. That was awesome. I just try to get other people up here to put it in perspective. So I hope the main lesson that you would have taken from this would be basically just the importance of having boundaries. And the main lesson, too, is, again, remember what I said? So many people, remember what I said? Like, I would have bad staff members. Why? Or not bad, but just like incompetent and not hardworking staff members. Because I'm too lazy to just go do a hiring rampage. I'm too lazy to hire somebody. Now, I fixed so much of this. Like, the past 3 years for me has been literally just fixing this. And I'm in a good space now. See, it's a lot easier to talk about something openly when you've kind of come through it. So one of my main goals, like one of the things that I do like that I built a bigger business was that I can share my foibles, right? I can share where I went wrong and the things that I did to fix it. So in my business, one of the really big things that I did to fix it was doing an audit of every single thing that I'm doing, that I could hire somebody else to do it, train them, put in the time to train them. Now, if you can't hire somebody else, then find some other means to get it done. But basically, it has to be handled effectively, and then lock in on things that raise my value. So when I go do, say that instead of me doing a bunch of menial tasks to help somebody whose approval I want, I focus on my thing, grow my thing, and then, I had a great video come out recently. It was that R.C. Tyler Fast Newbie Guide, right? Anybody here happen to catch that? Okay, and that video really popped off. It's, got a couple 100,000 views, but more importantly was the feedback on it, and it really increase the signups and so on and so forth. That was something I did for me. But when I do that for me, that's a win-win for the people that I work with too, because now they're connected to somebody who's being his best self. And I've since done a whole bunch of different things like that. So when I do that, ironically, the people who I want to please are more pleased when I do something for me and I'm being at my potential. So what I've had to do is audit. I had to really sit down and audit. Who are the people that are disruptive? Who are the people that are never going to get it? Who are the people that don't truly see the value that you have to offer? Like, you've got this amazing value to offer, but there's somebody who maybe isn't vibrationally able to recognize that value. That's a really big one. Like, a lot of things I'm saying here, I'm kind of glossing over, but like, just that topic could be a 5-hour seminar. Like, you're vibrationally not matched to somebody. They can't see what you have to offer, no matter what you do, by the way. And in fact, frankly, if you're at a higher vibration, so to speak, than them, the more that you do to try to help them, the more they could even snap back because they're not ready to move up yet. They have to burn off their karma and be on their journey. It's big right there, by the way. Likewise, what you have is, there's people that just can't see it. So what you've got to do is you've got to attract the people who can see it. The key to life, really, is audit your time. Okay, the first one would be value yourself. Say that with me. Yeah. Value yourself. Say, second of all, audit time. Audit time. Audit energy. Audit energy. Audit emotions. Audit emotions. Right? How much time, energy, and emotion are you putting into these various relationships? So the idea is you as a person, you have these different occupations, things you're putting in your body, friendships that you're integrating with, you're interfacing with. Say the word interfacing. Okay, it's the people, places, and things that you're interfacing with. And so there's people that now, remember, every truth's about a half truth. You want to give freely. You want to give to people who maybe aren't necessarily giving something back. But that being said, you also, the other side of that is you do have to interface with people and have boundaries, right? Remember Eben Pagan, he saw Ronald, and he said, sit the fuck down. I'm not interfacing with this. He could read the play a mile away. No matter what I do, it's not going to fix anything. He could read the play. He could see the future. It wasn't that he was a jerk. It's that he wants to help more people. He doesn't have time for this. So what happened is you've got to audit yourself. And when you do this audit, man, it is so eye-opening. It is an eye-opener. Because when you, and then after you audit how much time you put into certain relationships with people that aren't going to get it, they can't see the value you have either because it's not the right fit or not the right vibration, not the right investment, or you've over-invested. You ever heard the expression, if you want someone to be your best friend, get them to do you a favor? Funny one, right? Get them to do you a favor. So once you do that audit, I would ask you then, audit using your imagination what the opportunity cost was and what else you could have done with that time. Say to me, audit the opportunity cost. Be creative about what else you could have done with the time. It's really crazy. And that goes back to what you were saying, by the way, because you might have noticed in recent years I've been making a lot of videos where I'll say this kind of theme of think about how much time you're just wasting gossiping, talking about BS. We talk about this a lot on Julian's channel. And you start auditing and auditing and auditing and auditing. And man, is it ever weird when you do that audit and you think, wait a minute, so instead of doing that, I could have done this. And then what happens is you think about how much that would have stacked over the years. So you remember in yesterday's self-help talk we were discussing that whole concept of these little 1% that help you. Think of all those little 1% that you could have been getting that could have been helping you, right? And once you start adding that up, man. And usually success is either an upward spiral and failure is a downward spiral. So usually if you've been getting a couple wins, you actually could have been doing more and more. Like say like, you know, a case where someone stole like hundreds of thousands from my business. You got to understand that hundreds of thousands is not just hundreds of thousands. Because what could I have done with that money? What could I have done?
More free tours.
I could have done more events. I could have bought more camera gear. I could have made more hires. I could have done more launches. I could have done more advertising of some type, you know, limited kind we can do in dating, but we can still do some of it. You see my point, right? Like there's literally things that I could have been hiring other key people to help me. So that loss of 100 grand is not a loss of 100 grand. That's a loss of maybe $1 million. And with that million, what would you have done with that? And with that million, might have blah, 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 blah. Crazy, right? Do you remember yesterday when I was saying to you guys how I combine things that I'm doing? Like I'm doing one thing, but it's like doing 20 things. You guys remember that? You got to be looking at the way your life is stacking. When you look at people that are super successful and whatnot, there's a reason why they're super successful compared to you. It's a lot of this strategizing. For you guys who are coming to the self-help event up at the mansion, we are going to be going through that in detail. We're going to be really, really auditing you. And it's going to hurt. And it's going to be no holds barred. We're doing a self-help event. It's going to be $9.97. It's the mansion. Anybody wants to do it, I'm not going to pester you guys, but see me at the back if you want to come to it. Okay, it'll be in early May. Okay? Is there anybody here who's thinking of coming to that event that didn't sign up yet? A couple of you guys? Okay, I'll talk to you guys about that after, okay? So, basically what you have is once you start doing that audit, you're putting yourself in this really cool position. Because now what you can do is you can actually start winning. Remember Donald Trump, he said, we got to start winning again, right? That guy's very funny. So, you might hate him, but he's funny. So by the way, whether you love him or hate him, I would definitely say that he exhibits a lot of tendencies of being a narcissist. You know, and it's interesting. And something I didn't say about narcissists, by the way, is nature usually has intention. And narcissists often actually can be quite powerful because sometimes the social conditioning has become so bad that it takes that one crazy freaking narcissist to stand up to a lot of BS because anybody else would have collapsed. Anybody else would have been like, whoa, 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 I give in to like this like overpowering BS. So sometimes a narcissist can come in and fix a lot of stuff. Other times, though, a narcissist can come in and screw everything up. Like be a dictator. So, you're not going to go either way. You go either way, man. Yeah, narcissists, I mean, I've had narcissists in my life who also pulled me to higher heights. It's the truth. A lot of CEOs and business owners are narcissists because they don't see negative feedback. The smart person would be like, I'm not trying this business, that's crazy. The narcissist is like, everyone else is crazy, this will work. A lot of narcissists are super successful. So let's not just look down. There's, you know, but that said, if you see you're engaging with one, you got to be careful. But see, the thing with things like borderline personality disorder is typical bad behavior in a partner. BPD, which you can also look up, is like the exaggerated version of that same bad behavior. Like, the behavior that somebody with borderline personality does, which you should look up, is like toxic behavior. It's just a on steroid version of normal bad behavior. So narcissism is the kind of jacked up version of tendencies that regular people could have. It's just a more extreme version, would be the best way that I could put it to you, okay? So, the main thing, like I said, audit it. And you want to be shifting yourself into an upward spiral. The more that you can also stop engaging with even thoughts, this is what you were saying, looking at the level of pettiness in your thoughts. Do you remember one of the themes also from this week's event was realizing that you're going to die someday and realizing that most of what you think about is complete nonsense? Even those thoughts can be toxic, the way a person can be toxic. It's just this time-burning, energy-suck thought. So the more that you can get on point with this kind of stuff, the better. Okay? Well, I guess kind of what we're doing, for you guys that are coming to the event this month, what we're doing here is we're going over the theory. At the event, I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm not going to be, I mean, I'll talk a lot, but like, I'm not going to be doing seminar. I'm going to be doing exercises. It's going to be very interactive, exercise heavy. So you guys are going to be doing like group work and a lot of exercises. So like, because I can teach you, for example, I can teach you how to talk and talk forever the way I do, and I can tell you the theory behind it, but I'd rather get you doing an exercise doing it. You know, I can teach you, like, remember when Jeff had the guys up here doing the voice stuff? I can tell you the theory behind that all you want, but until I bring you up and do the drills with you, you're not going to change in most cases. Might, you know, you might, but you usually need to do it. So for you guys that are coming to the event this month, or it's early May, what date in May is it again?
2nd of May.
What date is it? 2nd to the 5th, yeah. We'll do it just like this event, like evening on Thursday, evening on Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be sick. So I hope you guys are pumped, and thank you for signing up. So basically, we're going to do exercise on it. But the main point, the theory that you can get leading into it is this. You have to look at what you're engaging with. And the other thing that you said that I liked was that you go through the kind of crappy clouds, and eventually it becomes sunny out. What happens is you go through this for a long time, and you can't imagine a reality where you're really on top of it. But eventually, after all that pain, you will get to these waypoints where you'll look at your life and your eyes are beaming and you're powerful and you're getting into relations and with people and stuff that are much, much, much healthier and feeding you. You're no longer afraid to walk away. A big one is you've established systems in order to bring new people into your life. That's a big thing we'll talk about at the seminar also. Systems building. I'm very, very, very passionate about systems building. I've seen the failure in systems building and dating for so many years, and I've now begun to learn that at a higher level in business. Basically what happens in business is you can build a business to maybe like 3 million a year, 5 million a year sales, 10 million a year sales, but once you start to hit around the 10 million a year sales, there's very few businesses that can even cross that 10 million point, because everything just explodes. The reason why is because the one person in the middle can't do everything anymore, and they have to train other people to do it, and you have to architect systems. So that's kind of what I've been having to learn, and it's definitely not easy, but I've learned a ton about it. So I've had to do that as part of my growth, and it's been beautiful. And really building systems I view as almost next to godliness, because I feel like God created the ultimate system, and as far as our biological systems, flowers, the earth, the water, like everything is the ultimate system. So when you build a system, it's like you're like this very miniature, very, very, very miniature version of like your godliness, where it's like you're building something beautiful in the system, and it's working perfectly. Like when I talk about how it makes me happy, say with my Instagram thing, and like, you know, I built a party, and I built a way to go out, and I built a way to meet people, and I built people reaching out to me. It's like I built that system. It's a really cool thing. Or when I don't get sick, for example, I've worked with my biology to build a system, and it's really cool. It's really, really fun. And it's fun when that system is synergistic, and all the different synergies are, you know, feeding each other, and then you kind of just go and you tweak the system, and as a result, you wind up getting like 50 or 100x the results that most people get. So it's not like you just get 50% better. It's not like you get, you know, 100% better. It's like you get 1,000 times better or something like that, because you're using the power of upward spirals, synergy, and just exponential growth.